topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the host and their guests, and not those of W4CS Radio, its employees, or affiliates. W4CS makes no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Support Network on W4CS.com.
Welcome. It's Arti from Light Up Your Life, and I'm really excited to be with you all today. It's actually just me, a solo show today, which it's been kind of a long time, so I'm actually quite nervous. So let's talk about nerves for a second. Nerves are completely normal. I think oftentimes we forget. I, of course, do public speaking engagements and presentations all the time. So I'm not quite sure where my nerves are coming from, but in this moment, I'm sharing with you that I'm nervous and I can feel like these little butterflies in my stomach. I can feel my heart pacing a little bit. Like if I literally put my hand on my heart, right? Just as a check-in, I can feel it's a little bit of a different frequency than it normally is. So, and this fits in perfectly with our topic today because we're really going to focus on mindfulness. And I love this topic so much because it is everything. And I think in terms of healing our minds, bodies, and spirits, we really have to start talking about it more and more and realize what type of practice it is and have more opportunities to just look at it in depth. So again, why I'm feeling this way, I sometimes think we glance over things and we just keep going. But I think for me right now in this moment, it's the fact that I haven't done it in a while. I think we're almost at 7 months of the podcast, and I have probably done 2 episodes on my own. And so I think it's that idea of getting used to things, right? I also am a creature of habit like all of us are, and maybe I'm a tad bit nervous that it's something new, or the fact that I'm so used to the idea that I'm always constantly talking to someone live that it's very different to do this. So I own my feelings, I accept them. I'm doing a little bit of reflection, excuse me, in this moment with you. And also I'm going to try to figure out what's happening with me later on my own time. Like, where is this stemming from? Because what ends up happening is when we don't address what is bothering us, or whether it be considered a negative emotion or not, then it gets lodged in our body. And if you all remember, we had an episode, if you got a chance to check in last week, with equine assisted therapy with Michelle Goss, who's out of Arizona, who works with animals. And she talked again about the idea about where our body lodges emotions. And so she has undergone training for what's called an emotion code practitioner. And I also know several people who are emotion code practitioners through various organizations that I've gotten involved with. And I now feel like that is an angle that I really want to look into, because what happens is we do lodge stress in our bodies, and it starts with an emotion and it gets stuck. So for instance, those of you who have been feeling awful, but none of your scans or your blood results or anything show anything, it's because it's a stress-induced illness. And so, which many of us face at different times, it's because an emotion or certain emotions get lodged in our body and they have no way of coming out. And so then then disease, chronic illness manifests itself. So a lot of people are focusing now on emotion how to really work at the root cause of emotion. And so today we'll be talking about mindfulness, but I also, the next time that I have an episode by myself, I really want to focus on chakras, which are the wheels of life. And I've really deeply become embedded in chakra work with a lot of my clients and with myself, and really learning on alignment so that we can really live more authentically and purposefully, and then trying to live this disease-free type of lifestyle. So, happenings. First, I just want to talk about, before we dive deep into mindfulness, is I want to share a couple things that are happening with the holistic life care, because I kind of realize that we spend a few minutes where I go into talking to you all about um, the guest, and I haven't gotten a chance to tell you what's happening. So, again, just want to remind you that the Holistic Life Care is a nonprofit. That's a 501c3 that was started pre-pandemic, just a few months before the pandemic, to really look at how can we live the most authentic, most fruitful, most healthy lifestyle. And the way that happens, that I have found, is the coaching modality. Coaching allows us to pull from within and get to our goals and our dreams and our aspirations and pull them forward. And to remind you, many of you may know that I was a mental health counselor, loved it, but it's a different approach when we look at coaching, because what I love about it is the fact that we are now taking who we are in this moment and pulling forward. And therapy is helping us to make sense of our past. And I love it because we have great clinicians who are addressing trauma, who are making sense of our past to be able to pull forward. So we need all of these professions in our mental health arena. At times we do need someone to help on board if there's need for some medication, which that psychiatrist can play a role. I highly believe a mental health clinician of some type, a licensed therapist, even those who are not licensed that are supervised, are really important. And then the coaching modality. And again, at times you only need one, actually, with psychiatry, on med management, you always want to make sure you're in therapy at the same time. So you're really getting the effectiveness of the whole model. But at times, coaching works really well with certain clients. And at times, a person who is going through therapy can be doing coaching at the same time as well. It's just very, very much of what's called an individual model that is designed. And there are times, again, where someone just needs to focus on therapy. They just need to be able to make sense of their past so that they can get to their present sense and self, so that they can establish goals and dreams and visions, and establish that in the coaching relationship. Regardless of whatever format, all of these play a crucial role in helping to make sure that we are our best selves. And so I don't want us to focus so much on calling it mental health. Dr. Daniel Amen, I've mentioned him many times, Amen, who is doing wonderful work. He runs the Amen clinics. He's written various books. He actually also endorses a program that I facilitate called Love and Logic. It's called the Love and Logic Institute, and it's actually modalities that work with families. But he has endorsed that. Him and his wife hugely believe in parenting and making sure we are creating effective parents by having these teaching models. So why I bring him up is he has brought up the notion of brain health versus mental health. And I will keep reiterating these points in most of our talks with others as well, because the more that we focus on brain health versus mental health, the more that everyone will realize that everyone deserves to have a coach. Everyone deserves to get a chance to look at their brain as an organ, as the most powerful organ there is. And now more and more studies are being done in integrative health, looking at if there's something happening in the brain, then what is happening with our heart or what is happening with our kidney. And you'll oftentimes see that the level of stress and the level um, of what's happening and the level of trauma, anything that's occurring and how it affects our mind, body, and spirit, and what it starts with our mind and our brain. And the more speakers and guests we have, and if you've noticed over the last 7 months, if you notice the thematic theme of everyone that's come on, including myself, we all keep talking about mindset, mindset, mindset. And being of mammalian nature, it is hard for us to focus sometimes on our mindset. It is a very powerful organ, our brain, but it's also very difficult sometimes to navigate. But if we start paying attention through this idea when we talk about mindfulness, when we talk about getting to a reflective practice of being able to work on self-regulation, which is not feeding into behavior that doesn't make sense for us. We all need it. And it's just not our kids who are running rampant that sometimes we realize our own addictions, such as our addiction to technology or addiction to even food or addiction to alcohol or addiction to sex or an addiction to drugs, that we all are having some type of addictive behavior. Oh, you can be even addicted to exercise, right? We've seen those. So regardless, the fact is we as adults also have to look at our patterns of addiction, and or addictive behaviors. I'm not saying everybody has an addiction that's full-fledged, but addictive behaviors. And so again, why I keep bringing up these things, or this is exactly where Theo Holistic Life Care is taking some turns, is that we're really focusing a lot on webinars and seminars, and also working with really great partnerships and collaborations, and really working out in the community. So I have recently become more and more engaged in our healthcare community to help facilitate some conversation so we can look at chronic illness and disease. And a big focus for me, of course, is making sure people have accessibility to understanding that it's East and West when we're integrating our models. Mindfulness is definitely an Eastern practice that has now come into our Western world for the good. And we'll talk about some of the most powerful key players in this industry. Will share their insights on why it's so important. And so while my individual caseload is relatively low right now, the outreach is really high. And another project I get to work on right now is actually looking at early childhood education and working with a program that's looking at using technology to help with language acquisition. And if you want to look it up online, it's called Lena, Lena. My daughter's name is actually Lena, but with 2 E's, but this is Lena, Lena. And Lena is an awesome program, nonprofit organization that's at the national level that is helping to build children's brains by language acquisition with a caregiver. And we found in the pandemic that oftentimes parents have been struggling to read to their children and also being able to just talk to their children. So this program's been developed for the Lena Start program is 0 to 3 for babies, caregivers to really work on interacting with their children. And I know we often think that we're talking with our babies and our toddlers, but this program allows us to even become more fruitful with our conversations and build their vocabulary, because as we know, early literacy skills come through speech and language in the early years that then work on those literacy skills for reading. And then I am a part of what's called the Lena Grow program, which is working with early childhood educators and different centers to help promote early literacy through those years of 2s, 3s, 4s programs before they go into the kindergarten modality. So I just recently got involved with it, and I love it so much because I do think we need to start analyzing data to be able to show people how can we rise to the occasion, what do we need to tweak, what do we need to change. And interestingly enough, even in that modality, I'm working and my team is working as coaches. We are going in and we're called coaches for the program, Alina coach, to help to address questions. So things like we ask questions about the data, like what did you notice this week with this data that's come through? And starting to facilitate conversations so the person, even as an educator, can go inward. The person as a parent can go inward. So more question-based, making the person think, giving them an opportunity to think. And that is why I love this modality. And I'm telling you all, it is the modality that is being used everywhere. And again, while there are people who may be claiming that they're coaches, it's someone who has gone through training, has been certified. So when you are starting to look for people, please look for their qualifications, because, it's like any other profession. It is a science and it does require background. And I do see soon it being a regulated profession. So there are a lot of people who are going around calling themselves coaches, and they may actually be really great. But the fact is, I do highly always tell people to look to make sure people are credentialed or have a background, and then make that connection. If you feel connected to that person, then that is really crucial. But again, reminder to you all at Forthia, we do serve people across the nation. And another thing that lately that's happened is I'm doing what are called 20-minute, just like quick healing sessions that are with Reiki, which is that energy healing, and then doing a little bit of just mindfulness in the moment. And they're 10 to 15, sometimes 20 at the most. I have found huge benefits from hearing from clients who love doing them in the morning. It really engages them from the rest of the day. It helps to reduce their stress and anxiety, and I've found that to be extremely helpful. And soon I hope to be able to launch a group type facilitation for just 20 to 30 minutes. So that can really be helpful to help reduce that stress and anxiety that comes sometimes from our early morning when we're rushed and we're trying to get situated. So just to be able to center us. So let's take a look at mindfulness. So why I chose this topic in particular is A, I deeply believe in it. B, I'm actually taking an 8-week program. It's called MBSR, Mindful Based Stress Reduction. My goal eventually is, again, I do feel like I have somewhat of my own crazy practice, but I do want eventually to be able to lead even more mindfulness meditation workshops. And like I said, I don't believe in doing anything without being qualified or certified. So I'm going through the 8-week experience myself. And so after that experience, I'll see where the road takes me and how much more practice I need to give myself in order to be grounded, to be able to facilitate the programming for others. So like I said, I do offer programming, and now I just want to get even more and more well rehearsed and grounding in it. So there's a couple definitions for mindfulness, and the one that speaks volumes, Jon Kabat-Zinn has done some really, really awesome work, and he has been doing it for a number of years. And I really love his name because I think it's pronounced Zen, but I often say Zen because mindfulness is about being Zen. It's about being so humble to the experience and being present. So, for example, me at the very beginning sharing my anxiety and nerves about being on solo today, I actually can tell you, if I just check in with myself, I literally feel better in this moment because of the fact that I had that release of emotion. I felt it in the moment. B, I didn't dismiss it. I'm very used to dismissing negative thoughts right away, like most people. I just want it to go away on its own and flutter away and just go off. But that's not how it happens. I've realized when I release too quickly, it does come back and fester itself in my body some way or another. And that's only come through the last 3 to 5 years, where I really look at myself deeply and look at pain and where am I be lodged and why things are happening. So his definition is mindfulness is paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. Why I love it? Because I love the word judgment, because judgment is what I often think is the terminal illness of the human condition. We're often we judge ourselves, which then manifests into judging others, and then it creates this chaos in our own being, but then our being of our family, and then our being in our community, and of course it goes to that global level. Our world leaders who have made impactful change, such as Nelson Mandela and Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., the list goes on, for our wonderful authors who've made great transitions in our world. Why I mention them is because they always talked about judgment and how we need to really eradicate judgment and what it does. And we still haven't learned from them. We still find our way in getting caught up in judging ourselves and judging others and judging our family. And then judging our family, which at times then we, of course, are judging others. And so, again, that displacement of self happens, and then we are found to be living miserably. So I just really find this particular definition so powerful. And again, on purpose, in the present moment. So all of our being in that present moment focuses on that. So for instance, I'm using my most present example earlier. If I had dismissed that moment, then I wouldn't have shared it with you out loud. I could have actually been so afraid of the judgment call of sharing something that seems so trivial, right? It seems so trivial. Here I am, someone who is known to be a speaker, who has their own podcast show, who comes on other people's podcasts, who does a lot of work with webinars and seminars, who does a lot of interviews left and right. And I had my own apprehension. But if I hadn't shared that, because of what I was feeling would have been judgment by you, would then have led to me not living mindfully, right? It would have been me being so afraid of judgment to not even express myself in that moment. And it's the idea of noticing what is coming up for me in this moment. So when I talk to you about my heart racing, when I talk to you about how it felt in my body, it's because I actually was paying attention. And then by doing that little exercise with you all, I felt lighter and a release had happened. It doesn't get lodged in my body as stress and anxiety. And it also allows me to be human, right? Human with myself, human with others. And it reminds us that nothing's trivial. It becomes trivial actually when we make it trivial, right? Like if we fester, oh, it's not important. That doesn't matter. Oh, that pain that's lodging in my tooth, it'll go away. It's not a big deal. That actually is when things can get us into trouble, because the little bits are what are increasing, right? And then they have this magnitude. The more and more we look at cancer, the more and more we look at cancer research, as you know, I also examine cancer very closely in our practice. The more that we look at it, we have found that many people who have had chronic stress and who have been having layers upon layers of emotions building and chronic stress and not having a release have had body manifestation of cancer. Because at the cellular level, at that basic cellular level, our bodies cannot handle feeling overloaded. It's just not possible. We were not designed to be cattle. I mean, we were designed to be humans who need rest. And then if we go on overload and overcharge, that basic at the basic cellular level, when our bodies are not given rest, is when that inflammation, which is the killer of all, that inflammation builds, and that inflammation again then will lead to disease. So it's as simple as that. It's not a complex equation on why we are getting sick. It's the fact that we have to find ways. And y'all, regardless of coronavirus lifting its paws off of us, or whatever you want to say, we will still carry stress in our lives. You know, I was thinking about this yesterday. We give our cell phones on our work emails, right? Like, you can access me at all times. But sometimes I think, is that the right thing to do? We have constant, you can email me anytime. So does that mean that I'm going to respond to you right away? Or I'm expected to respond to you right away? So we have forgotten how to do some detachments of like having some time for ourselves, because we are so overworked and overtired. And then again comes those addictive behaviors calling for us, right? Because it's a way for dealing with all the stress, and also just to be able to unwind. So therefore the balance comes in place, and therefore the word of mindfulness comes in place. So when you look at mindfulness and the definition we just talked about, mind being full. So our mind is so full of thoughts and so full of behaviors and so full of actions that if we give the opportunity to have a release of it, what does it look like? It starts to help alleviate pains in our bodies and pains in our systems, and allows us to be happier and fruitful. And again, mindfulness is nothing new, actually. All indigenous populations have had a practice of having mindfulness, especially in communal settings. There's so many people who love the fire pit and being gathered around a fire pit, or even having solo time around a fire pit. Why? Because they literally are engaged with an element of earth, fire. They gather, and they can just, sometimes you're in that moment with people, you can be silent, just staring into that fire and being so present and alive. Another element that people love so much is water. You become so mindful at looking at an ocean or the waves of the ocean that you forget all your troubles and cares, even if you're not in the water. Sometimes that even makes just the idea of looking in the water. Half the people don't even get in. They're just really so present. The feel of the sand and being in nature with that water element also allows us to be mindful naturally. And then, of course, the idea of air and sky and ether. And air, we often talk about how good it feels just to have fresh air if you've been stuck, for a while. And those of you who are on constant call after call after call, if you'd even take 2 seconds before hopping onto that Zoom call and just opening your door and just getting some fresh air, or if you can even open up a window and just being able to hear the birds and the squirrels. And if you get the privilege of having a workspace where you have like some light, please engage in that room. You may need to do like a feng shui of your office environment if you're feeling a little like, what is happening to me lately? I can't focus, or I'm not feeling my environment. I have a smaller little space upstairs that is considered an office space, but I actually came down to this room because there's more windows and more light in here, that I have found that I work better in this environment. I'm also able to sometimes look up outside my window, look at the birds. And while giving you this advice, I was thinking, if there's something back to back, why am I not opening up my window? Which then allows that oxygen, for our oxygen to build, and also for like the idea that we do feel so connected to nature and getting that presence. So please take a look at your work environment. If you are working from home, and even those of you who are going into the office, just evaluate. There's so much great stuff with lighting these days. If you do have office lighting, that's crazy tube lighting. If I could do anything, I would change the tube lighting in schools, because I do know it's playing a real heavy load on what it's doing to those kids' systems. That awful tube lighting, and lighting in general in classrooms and schools is really, I often think children are being misdiagnosed with certain things because we haven't evaluated their environment and what overstimulating environments can do for children. Sorry, that was just always on a tangent, but I share that because I just want you to pay attention to lighting wherever you are. It plays a huge, huge role. And when we have the opportunity to talk about chakras, we'll talk about the idea behind why each color, why certain colors hold such power. Even in the closet, when you pick a certain item, it holds power because there's a need for that color in your life for actual healing and for allowing for engagement. So back to mindfulness on the idea of why it's so important. So let's talk about intention. We're doing it on purpose, like purposeful behavior. What is my intention? So going back to my reflective experience, my intention on sharing how I was feeling in that moment with you was so that I didn't get so hung up in my anxiety that I couldn't fully be here with you. So that's exactly why I shared it. Number two, my intention was to be completely working on authenticity as much as I can. It's getting there. It's a work in progress. So I shared that experience, that humbling experience with you because I'm working on my own authenticity. And then knowing that I was doing that, like sharing that with you in that moment so that, again, I didn't lodge it in my body, in my mind and body spirit later, where I would deal with it an hour later, but maybe not deal with it. Because by that point, I'm going to dismiss it and be like, okay, I did it. It's done. I got through that hour on my own. And maybe those were crazy feelings and it's done. But the next time that experience happens again, I will be carrying the weight of the feelings that were undealt with. So then I have like a double whopper. Okay. Because I'm dealing with my feelings from that moment and then my underlying feelings. So do you understand the idea of this compounding, not compounding interest, but compounding variable of stress ball after stress ball after stress ball. And guess what? Like a balloon, it's going to eventually pop, right? And that's exactly what we're trying to prevent. That's why doing these practices helps us to be preventative. And I also want to share with you, when I do my own sessions now, I don't even call them guided meditation. I don't even call them guided relaxation. And I actually this came to me in this 8-week session of my MBSR class. I realized in my own practice when I had my eyes closed, while our instructor was talking about when we get fixated on relax, like, yes, it'd be so awesome if I could relax in my practice. But if I focus on that, then I'm not actually engaging in how it really feels. Or what happens if I don't get to that relaxation? Then you stress out, right? Oh my God, I didn't get there. Or meditation. There are a lot of people who are like, I don't know how to meditate. I don't want to meditate. So then I'm missing out on the opportunity to serve people who actually deserve a chance to embody this practice because they feel like it's so intimidating because they can't get there. They don't want to get there, right? So I actually have coined the term guided moment. And I am loving it so much because like those 20-minute sessions, they're just guided moments with a throw in of whatever's needed in that moment. And of course it is Reiki at times just to send that energy medium that I have found to love so much, that I share and that I use. But again, it has come to me to know that guided moment in my practice to share with others has become key to being used instead of calling it guided. And then the goal is to go from guided moment to being able to lead up to guided journey, and then guided meditation, and those transitions. And it may not even get there. I haven't fully decided. I may leave it at just running guided moment sessions. But I want to make our vocabulary less stressful and less I think stressful, because I think vocabulary and terminology stresses people out when they don't know what it means, or B, they think they know what it means and they get intimidated. Now, attention, we talk about attention in the present moment. So your true mind, body, and spirit, how your five senses are so engaged in this moment that you experience it all. So I shared how my heart was feeling. I shared how I was kind of feeling physically. Then I was sharing some of my expressive thoughts that were coming to me. Those are all part of paying attention. And I have been found myself to dismiss a lot of feeling a certain way. But as you get more and more grounded in some type of practice, the more you pay attention, the better it feels to start being able to release it as well. Attitude of non-judgment. I know we all struggle from trying not to judge. Guess what? It starts with us. So you got to do the work, because we sometimes focus so much on, like, oh, I'm judging other people, but actually we start with judging ourselves, right? So find what is it that's holding us back? What is it that we're judging about ourselves? A lot of times it stems with not feeling good enough for many, many people. I'm not good enough at my job. I'm not good enough with my time management. I'm not good enough with my family, whatever it is. And then evaluating, because then it comes down to talking about self-worth, right? So there's all of these value systems that get embedded. And that's what coaching does too. We look at the value set and values of what's happening in this moment and what's carrying us, and then how to propel that into helping our goals happen. So the attitude is not judging it. I think I had a moment where I judged how I was feeling earlier. Like, why? Yeah, I did. I said, why am I feeling this way? I've done this so many times. Of course, I know how to talk in front of people by myself. But I judged myself. Like, why am I struggling with this when I've done this for so long? So I'm questioning, or in this moment, why am I having a hard time with this? And that's where I have to go inward and figure out what's happening, right? Like, I'm not going to give up on this quest to figure out what is happening. And it may come up with an I don't know right now. I may never know for a while, but I'm going to give myself an opportunity to have reflective practice. So I also sit in silence a lot more than I did, because it's going to give me opportunity to grow, to figure out what's happening. That's the other thing. Mindfulness allows us to sit in silence. So I'm going to stop my camera for those of you who are going to watch the video. And then those of you who are going to listen in on a podcast or on the radio, you're just going to take time. And of course, if you're in the car, you wouldn't be closing your eyes. But I just want you, take time. We're going to take some collective time just to sit in silence. And when there's chatter that's starting in your mind, come up with a way to say something to yourself, to maybe want to release it, or maybe you just want to sit with that chatter for a second, acknowledge it, and then release it. However, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. This is what I love about this time and space with all of it. We're finally realizing that this practice is your own. You get to own it, just like yoga practice. It's your own. There's no right or wrong way besides doing it. That's it. Doing it. All right. Let's take a minute just to, if you're in a safe place, you could just close your eyes and just sit in a few minutes of silence. When you're ready, you can slowly wiggle your toes and your fingertips. And you can do a gentle neck roll, one counterclockwise and clockwise. Go at your own speed. You can give yourself a gentle bear hug, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. You know, even, I don't even know how long that was, but even giving ourselves a few minutes, like I didn't check the time, but it might have been like a minute and a half, I imagine close to 2. When you do even one little mindful moment like that, I literally feel like I'm on a high. I really am. Like can you see it? Look, I'm a little bit more energized, right? I have a little bit more light. If you notice, I'm like pumped. So something just happened to me in this moment where I took a few minutes and I just feel revitalized. Let me share my experience with you, since, of course, it's a solo show, but when you get some time, try to discuss how these opportunities feel with someone, so you realize what is happening with other people. Because the minute you realize everybody's having a way of pulling themselves back, you'll realize that it's normal. So I share with you, I had a minute, or not a minute, I'm sorry, and in that experience, with my eyes closed, being in that moment, I still had a moment where I was like going through my to-do list of someone I needed to get in contact with to have a discussion about a project for next week. And I was like, wait, no, pull yourself. You can worry about that later. I talked to myself, and then the rest of it, I just, with intentionality, I might have had one more small moment very similar to that one about scheduling, and the rest, I was so engaged, and so present in closing my eyes and giving myself permission, and then knowing that I was in a collective space, period, of you all who are listening and later will view in that energetic sphere of vitality, that I was so excited that, look, I have a whole bundle of energy and I'm ready to pump it up. And that's what, even 2 minutes, I don't even think we went to, I don't even, gosh, I wish I timed it, but that's how powerful this stuff is. I say that meditation, and we're going to call it guided moments. I didn't even guide you today. I literally had you close your eyes, right? We didn't even do anything of where we could go on an experience of climbing a mountain, or, going into a space. We just literally gave ourselves permission to pause. That in itself is so powerful that I'm not even craving my afternoon coffee, right? I usually have a cup around noon, and we're getting to that point. There's so many channels that can happen. So really giving ourselves permission to just close our eyes. So I'll give you an example. Those 2 minutes before you're in a waiting room on Zoom, or 2 minutes before you're going in, you just like close your eyes. You can put your hands on your heart center. You can bring them in prayer. You can even just like do something with your hands that provides you comfort, and close your eyes and give yourself permission to re-engage and refocus and bring renewed energy to your next. And then give yourself some type of bear hug or something to acknowledge the fact that you gave yourself permission. What else did I want to share with you all? Patience. Be patient with yourself, please. Like, this is an art form. I also, for one of my coaching practices, am part of an organization that does activity-based coaching. And so we're doing these art classes, and I'm like a 5-year-old, the way that I paint and draw, but I love it so much. And it's okay. My art is mine, and it's going to look different than someone else's. It's taking me acceptance to get here, right? But I'm working on it day by day. So patience. And I may actually fine tune my strokes a little bit, but I might always have a heavy hand, and I'm working on accepting it. So patience. And especially in our own healing and our own practice. Patience. Those of you who are dealing with chronic illness and our bodies can heal themselves. It's going to require time and energy and patience on your part, and knowing that the disease didn't come overnight, and neither will the recovery and the healing. Speaking of, I have a great, it's actually on Netflix too. It's called Heal, Heal. I watched it last weekend. It was a really powerful documentary on self-healing powers and alternative therapies, and I loved it so much. I hope you get a chance to watch it. It was magnificent and really well done with great individuals. I love this one, and we'll end with this. It's called Beginner's Mind. Just enter knowing that your beginner's mind, like every experience we have, go in like being a newborn child and being so excited about things, especially in this practice, that even the most seasoned meditation gurus and the teachers will tell you there's nothing like reflective practice with just being humble and kind to yourself and being patient. So I, of course, I'm going to continue this mindfulness movement again. And when I have some solo time, I will, of course, bring some great speakers and folks along this journey with us. But I want to tell you that it's not done here yet, because there's so many other principles we could discuss. And I was thinking, well, am I going to be able to fill space today, time today, just on my own? And look what happens. When we carry ourselves in the moment and we free ourselves, things just magically happen. So I'm asking you to give yourself some permission and some space and grace. Space and grace. It's my favorite word, space and grace. Keep space and grace for yourself and know that it's one step at a time. And if you haven't gotten a chance to ever to look at our website, it's www.theholisticlifecare.com. And I know a lot of people have commented on our website, and they have said it's really spoken to them. There's going to be some additions and some changes occurring over the next couple months to even add some more value. And then, of course, you can always email at theholisticlifecare@gmail.com. And as we build our platform, if any of you, we can always accept volunteers, even nationally. You can just email out. And as we continue to build the platform, thank you all so much for your time and energy and space. And those of you who are committed to watching and listening and taking in pieces of information, please pay it forward by passing the message on of being kind and humble with ourselves. I will see you all next week. Have a good week, everyone. My heart, Terry.